all across America and around the world. This is Veterans Radio. This is Veterans Radio.
Good day. I'm Jim Fausone. I'm the officer of the deck today here on Veterans Radio, and thanks for joining us. We've got some interesting stories for you. We always want to remind you you can find more about Veterans Radio at its Facebook site or at the web, veteransradio.org, where we're on the web 24/7. You can find a lot of our podcasts there as well. We post new ones every Tuesday, so you can get a new story, a new interview, something you didn't know before by going to veteransradio.org. And before we get started, we want to thank our sponsors. First up, we want to thank National Veteran Business Development Council, nvbdc.org. It was established to certify both service-disabled and veteran-owned businesses. You'll find out how they can help your business by going to nvbdc.org. We want to thank Legal Help for Veterans. Legal Help for Veterans fights for veterans' disability rights all across the nation. You can reach them at 800-693-4800 or on the web at legalhelpforveterans.com. And finally, PuroClean. PuroClean is the paramedics of property damage. It provides water damage remediation, flood water removal, fire and smoke damage remediation, mold removal, biohazard cleanup. It also has a focus on veteran franchisees. You can learn more about them by going to puroclean.com. We just want to remind you that Veterans Radio podcasts are available on all your favorite streaming platforms, including rss.com, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Rees Across America Radio. So wherever you are, you can find us. We were recently identified as in the 15th spot, if you will, of the top 100 veteran-centric podcasts by FeedSpot. So we're really pretty proud of being in the top 15. So listen in wherever you're at to veteransradio.org and its podcasts.
We want to welcome to Veterans Radio today historian, author, fellow, Quin Cho, who's going to talk to us about the Pacific Atrocities Education Foundation out in California, although I think he's actually on the East Coast at this point. But Quin, welcome to Veterans Radio.
Hi, thank you for having me on.
Well, let me set this up a little bit. You are, as I mentioned, a historian and author. Specializing in the history of global conflict and geopolitics in the Asia-Pacific region. You are a 2023 graduate summa cum laude from the University of Southern California. We always like to have these really smart guys on because you can help the rest of us regular folk just understand what's going on. You had a double major in history and international relations. You are a fellow at the Pacific Atrocities Education Foundation. And that's an organization, as I understand it, that started in 2014 by Jenny Chen to have a little more focus, a little more research, a little more academics on what went on in the Asia Pacific region during World War II. We tend to focus a little more, I think, on European theater, but a whole lot of activities. I know my father was over in the Pacific, so a lot of activities in the Pacific. But tell us how you got involved with the Pacific Atrocities Education.
Yeah, so I actually got involved with Pacific Atrocities Education in the summer of 2020 during the pandemic. I've had an interest in the Second World War and in military history for quite a long time, since I was a rather small child. And by the time that I was done with my freshman year of college, I found this internship opportunity on the Pacific Atrocities Education website, and I applied, and I became an intern, and I wrote a book actually on the China-Burma-India campaign of World War II. Um, it's on Amazon. You can buy it if you are so desire. It's called Competing Empires in Burma. Um, the China-Burma-India Theater of World War II, and uh, yeah, I did that, and I've actually today I just completed a over 400-page book about the Kwantung Army, which was a Japanese army in Manchuria. After my fellowship ended in 2020, I uh, basically started a new project on the Kwantung Army, and um, I've been working on it in the summers and ever since I became a fellow at PAE after graduation. And today I finished. I finished the
Well,
final draft of Volume 1.
congratulations. Congratulations. That's got to feel great to finally say, okay, that's done. Now, are you still in the editing for publications phase, or is that all done as well?
I just finished the editing process. It took a lot out of me, and I've pulled some all-nighters here, but I've burnt the candle on both ends and gone to the mat, but I think the result will end up being worth it in the end.
You just finished a book, so I want to talk about it a little bit because it's so fresh in your brain. Tell us about why you wrote 400 pages on the Kwantung Army and what's that all about?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I certainly did write over 400 pages on the Kwantung Army, and in a way, I'm still trying to grapple with the question of what it's about. And and that's 400 pages later. But the I guess the key idea that is in this first volume. This is only volume 1 of
Oh,
what is probably going to be a three-part series about the Kwantung Army. Is that the Kwantung Army is really the key initiator of events, the catalyzer of events in East Asia that puts Japan on the path to war in the Asia Pacific region. Why is this? Well, it's because of the false flag attack they conducted on the Japanese-owned South Manchuria Railway on September the 18th, 1931. Um, Basically, what you had was you had two Kwantung Army staff officers. Uh, you had Ishiwara Kanji, the chief of the operations section, and another guy by the name of Itagaki Seishiro, who for 2 years planned an invasion of Manchuria and eventually resolved to conduct a false flag attack to justify it and get support from their own government and understanding from abroad. And they schemed and planned and conducted reconnaissance and conducted in-depth studies of the region and its people and geography and terrain and administration, and they came to the conclusion that that Manchuria was very important to Japan, so much so that it was in their view, a lifeline, an economic lifeline that could help put Japan on the road to uh, autarky or self-sufficiency. Um, Ishiwara, in particular, had some very interesting ideas about what he called the final war, and the idea that there would probably be a war at the supposed end of history between the U.S. and Japan, and that Japan needed an autarkic, self-sufficient sphere in Manchuria to prevail and to even have a chance to prevail in such a war. And it's because of these, I guess, ideas which caught on as because for a variety of reasons, including the Great Depression and the kind of a rise of Chinese nationalism in the other parts of China, that the Japanese and the Kwantung Army decided to take matters into their own hands and kind of conduct this false flag attack and invade Manchuria, and it could continually expand the incident, uh, uh, despite their government and general staff not ordering them to do so. This was their own initiative, right? This was their doing, and because of that, they yes, were able to conquer Manchuria despite great odds. For reference, there were about 10,000 men in the Kwantung Army on September 18th, and there were about probably 250,000 men in Jiang Xueliang's army. He was the Chinese warlord that opposed them. Maybe 130 or 140,000 of those guys were in Manchuria. That's still over 10-1 odds, right? And
Was this a land grab and resource grab? That was the thinking? We've got to get off our island here in Japan and go get that mainland area in China
yes,
for resources and people.
resources and people. Well, especially in Manchuria, you have coal and iron, right? Steel. That was a big part of the calculus. Ishiwara, in particular, wanted to build a second industrial base in Manchuria in the event that there would be some sort of a bombing campaign or from the U.S. During what he saw as inevitable conflict between it and Japan. Um, so there was that element. There was a but it's really probably best understood in context in which it arose, and that is of the Great Depression, in which there was a severe worldwide economic crisis that also affected Japan. So, for instance, you have silk, the silk exports, the value of silk exports, I think, went down from over $300 million in 1929 to 69 million in 1934. That's a pretty precipitous decline. And then you also have the effect that this had on many rural households in Japan. So 2 in 5 rural households were involved in the silk industry. Japanese society at that time was still majority rural, as were most of the guys in the army. And so you had consequently a kind of proliferation of uh, I I guess ideas that were outside the bounds of what was considered normal in the 1920s in Japan.
So,
And
so this
yeah,
this this conflict starts a decade before World War II, really, in bombing of sort of Pearl Harbor, about a decade.
yeah, a
And
decade. Yep.
and how does that Manchurian invasion just sort of blend into World War II? How does the Kwantung Army, and you're writing 3 volumes, so you haven't gotten to the end yet. You're only 400 pages into the first volume. Quickly walk us to, like, where's the end point?
Well, that's kind of one of the problems for the Kwantung Army and also for Japan as a whole, is there was no end point in a sense. So they take over Manchuria. It is a successful operation. They planned it well. It was very in depth, and they were also helped by the fact that the Chiang Kai-shek was fighting the communists and some other domestic enemies, and he issued a non-resistance order to Jiang Xueliang's forces. He was the Chiang Kai-shek aligned warlord in northeast China. So okay, that you take over Manchuria, but then there's the problem of what you might call mission creep or the mission creep
Sure,
complex,
sure.
right?
Yep.
That is to say, once you take over Manchuria, well, Manchuria doesn't have all the coal and iron deposits that you thought that it had, and those turned out to be a little bit further west. And you also have this remaining force of Zhang Xueliang's armies that are still immediately to the west of Manchukuo, which was the puppet state that the Kwantung Army set up. So what do? You invade the province of Yehou or Zhehe in 1933, again without really getting the permission of the government or the general staff. You then begin balkanizing or trying to balkanize parts of North China, most notably Hebei province, which is kind of surrounds Beijing, and Inner Mongolia, which is kind of it borders Mongolia, as the name would suggest, and you basically get the Kwantung Army covertly supporting these ethnic and regional separatists uh, in trying to break off what is nominally sovereign Chinese territory into Kwantung Army satellite states, all in the name of securing the original possession of Manchuria, right? And then, that leads to Chiang Kai shek. He gets kidnapped by Zhang Xueliang and held at gunpoint, and he's basically told that you're either going to end this first pacification, then resistance policy, or else. He ends it, creates a united front, and resolves to resist Japan and not let any of these encroachments happen anymore. And then you get the Second Sino-Japanese War breaking out in 1937 after the Marco Polo Bridge incident, which is, another one of these incidents that that was more of an accident, really, but objectively led to a conflagration breaking out in China, and then the Second Sino-Japanese War eventually leads to Pearl Harbor and the Strike South campaign, which is Japan's assault on Southeast Asia, because the China campaign is why Japan doesn't have the necessary raw materials that it needs to continue prosecuting the war. Or really, it's because Japan did not defeat China in the 6 months that it assumed it could.
Boy, I got to tell you, Quinn, this is a fascinating story. I'm beginning to see or understand the complexity and why this is going to end up a 3-volume set for you. It's a hell of an endeavor, and listening to you, I have echoes of Putin and Crimea and Ukraine and going on in my head like, have we learned nothing? And the answer is, of course, we've learned nothing from our history. That's why, in part, it's important to know your history. So maybe you can learn a few things. I really appreciate the extra time. I told you, we've doubled what I told you we were going to run. So I do appreciate this, and I anticipate we're going to be back together talking about some of this in the future because of its complexity and its importance today. To our veteran radio listeners, Quin Cho, who are going, I knew nothing about this. Where would you point them for some more resources to get a little more educated?
Yeah, so obviously, Pacific Atrocities Education website is a great place to start. There are a good many blog posts and videos and books you can find on the website. Most of the books are not 400 pages, so that's not really you can start off smaller if you want. And the blog posts obviously are even more diminutive than that, and I think they're very well written in my opinion. I think the interns put a lot of effort into them, and they're very informative. I'm quite impressed oftentimes by the content that I see, and then you have the videos as well on the PAE website. So I would say that you should check the website out for sure and see what strikes your fancy.
So, and you can find Quin's book, Competing Empires in Burma, a chronicle of the China-Burma-India theater of World War II on Amazon. It was actually ranked in the top 10 of Amazon's military category. His new book is now written, not quite out yet, but you expect it to be published later this year, I take it?
I think I hope it will be published by September 18th, the anniversary of the Mukden incident, the false flag attack.
So you'll be able to find that again. Will that be up on not only the PAE website but also over on Amazon?
Yeah, it should be on Amazon for sure.
Well, you're doing exciting and important work. We appreciate the time that you gave us here today on Veterans Radio, Quin. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
I'm going to stop the...
And I want to thank everybody for listening to Veterans Radio today. I am Jim Fausone. It's been a pleasure to be your host. I'm a veterans disability lawyer at Legal Help for Veterans, and you can reach us at 800-693-4800 or legalhelpforveterans.com on the web. You can follow Veterans Radio on Facebook and listen to its podcasts and internet radio shows by visiting us at veteransradio.org. That's veteransradio.org. We again want to thank our national sponsors, the National Veterans Business Development Council, nvbdc.org, Legal Help for Veterans, a veterans disability law firm with a national practice before the VA, can help you on your claims and your appeals. It can be reached at legalhelpforveterans.com or 1-800-693-4800. And PuroClean, a leader in property emergency services. It's the paramedics of property damage, providing water damage remediation, flood water removal, fire and smoke damage remediation, mold and biohazard cleanups. You can reach them at puroclean.com or 800-775-7876. We also want to thank our local sponsors. This would include the Charles S. Kettles chapter of the Vietnam Veterans of America, that's chapter 310, VFW Graf O'Hara Post 423, the American Legion Irwin Preskin Post 46 in Ann Arbor as well, the VA Ann Arbor Healthcare System, and certainly the National Vietnam Veterans of America Association. You can be a sponsor by going to veteransradio.org, clicking on the About Us and our sponsors, and help us out. Keep this program alive for the 21 and 22 years. Keep us going for another 20. Thank you.